So thanks everyone for coming. And I guess for me, I've always designed face-to-face simulations, very low tech, usually about conceptual and often emotional, power, politics, interactions, things like that. So designing activities like that to take online. Oh, Dale, can you turn on recording?
Yeah, it's recording. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I had it on pause. I've just realised. So, deciding how to move simulations for learning to online settings. I'm billing it as an exploration because the game that I've partially designed, I haven't played yet. So this is an exploration about things. In effect, what I'm interested in working with everyone today is what are the factors that inform decisions when you're creating games generally. I've got a couple that I use. Be interested to hear what other people do. What are the special conditions for moving from one medium to another? I've got an emerging process to look at some design issues, and we might put you out into a couple of breakout rooms to just discuss those. And the particular topic for the game is helping adults learn to draw systems diagrams. Because they're going to be needing to understand how they work in a series of negotiations, understanding why there are differences and what different stakeholder values are going to be. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I've got two slides about how I think about game design. And I know there are lots and lots of models, so I just thought I'd say, well, here's my frame. This is from Dick Duke. He wrote a book in 1969 called Gaming the Future's Language. I think it's still one of the best books around, but it was so far ahead of its time. He's a town planner, and what he was trying to do was use games and simulations in the Lake Michigan area to teach his students about town planning, but eventually also to work with community engagement and learning about the decision processes. So what he suggests, it's 3 stages, but if you really do it with Dick, he's got 21, so he breaks each one into subsections. But he says the first step is you've got to know what's the problem state or the reference system that you're going to be, that you want to represent in the game. And he calls that reality, and you get as much information about that as you can. But once you've collected it, what you have to do is reject all the non-relevant bits and start reducing it down to move into the second stage, which he calls system analysis, distilling and selecting the bits. And the interesting thing here is that you might actually find some of the bits you throw out in round 1 need to come back, and some of the stuff you think you're going to use get dropped out. So you can go round and round these. What you're doing here is selecting the elements of reality that you're then going to represent, and obviously leading towards how you might represent them. And at the top level is the simulation game. And Dick's very keen to emphasize that it's kind of an above reality issue, because what's happening in the game has to be like real, but is not itself real. And that's a really interesting paradox there about it's real, but it's not real. But that's the 3 stages that he emphasizes when you're selecting the material and beginning the design. And then the second one I use is Ken Jones's model. He kind of works across the top level of Dick's 3, and he says we've got 4 questions. Who are the learners? What's going to be addressed? What are the resources? And what are they going to be able to do afterwards? And the thing about these questions is you can ask them in any order. You can ask them repeatedly. And each time you're asking the question, you're refining your design process. So I kind of use both of those as the back of my mind frameworks for thinking about how to design. So I've got a face-to-face. Here's the Q&A for the game I was thinking of designing. So the learners are adults working with complexity. What they're going to do afterwards is to independently create and or explain systems diagrams. What's the problem? The problem here is how to acquire that skill of doing that. And in a face-to-face mode, the resources would be post-its, chart paper, pens, groups, open spaces, flipboards, and time to do it. So this is if I was doing it face-to-face. However, when we, hang on, does that change people's view?
Yes.
Right,
Yes,
okay. Thanks. Because this one's, when you're moving online, those first three questions all disappear. So the first three questions for my game, they're still going to be the same. The fourth question when you're moving online is what resources and how they're going to be used. That's the one that we're now puzzling with, because there's a whole lot of unknowns and we don't know how we're going to do them, and how do we make it coherent? It's doing it on its own.
I was going to say, going very well, Elyssebeth.
So just before we get into the design stuff, the first question, like, what is the system? And you can see that the definition there. It's an entity that maintains its existence through interaction. So it's always moving or has the capacity to move. It's about, there's a wonderful song from the Sgt. Pepper's record called Within You, Without You, and it's about the spaces between people. And in a way, for me, that's what systems thinking is about, mapping the spaces between things. Systems thinking, in effect, it means that we understand that what we find when we ask questions is a result of how we ask the questions. And it's for understanding how things work. So there's a really nice link there if people want it, and you'll get the slides afterwards. But these things are not easy to comprehend. And for adults who are going to be needing to read and draw systems diagrams, it's a pretty complex process. So I'm going to go back to me controlling the buttons instead of my previous timing. And I love this drawing from an artist called Jock McNeish. And it's just headed systems. Touch them anywhere and you touch them everywhere. Like a big jelly on a plate. You push it in one corner and it's going to wobble all over the place. It's a way of understanding systems. And this is what so that's the first stage. But the second stage is, how do you draw a system? And that's what the game's about. So getting into where my concept. So here's my thought starter. That's what I wanted to do. Here's how I thought I might do it. When I was talking to Maria, lots of ideas came up, and I don't know, it must have been a news item or something. What I thought is that we could use all that we know about the plans for getting rugby league back operating while the COVID-19 lockdown is still largely in place. It seemed to me that it would be possible to do systems diagrams from different perspectives of all the stuff that was going on around that. So I picked that as something that could be mapped. I then decided that I'd assign players to groups as if they were key stakeholders in the process. And that as if thing comes out of drama theory from the work by a woman called Dorothy Heathcote, who created this idea of the mantle of expert. And it's kind of like if you lay the mantle over somebody and say, you are an expert in being Rugby League New South Wales. And what I want you to do is to think about all of the issues that you could think of that would be an argument for getting rugby league back going. And once you do that, people are able to operate as if they were Rugby League New South Wales. Because there's enough knowledge in their heads, they can imagine what it might be like, they can draw on their own experiences of other parallels, so they become a kind of as if expert. So I thought, okay, I'll use that. And then I had this process. So I was going to divide them into groups. I'd get them to develop lists and then cluster all the factors from their assigned viewpoint. Then, and I'll show you in the next slide, the way I was mapping the groups. I get what I called like-minded groups to combine their lists and begin connecting the dots. How does this connect to this? What do you think this looks like? So they're actually in the process of creating a systems diagram without even knowing that's what it's called, because the theory and the knowledge is going to come later. And then you've got the oppositional groups, again, coming up in the next slide, and then we'd have a debrief. So if I was doing it in a face-to-face activity, that's what I'd be doing. Now, it's kind of a game because they're in role. It would be time-bound, like I'd give them a time limit to set things up. There's not so much winning and losing, but they're playing with ideas. So it's not a really tightly defined simulation. It's kind of a loose coupling. So here's how I thought I'd assign the players. Stakeholders by groups by primary goal. And the primary goal, those wanting a fast return, you can see who I thought they might be. You might think of others or want to drop some of them out. And it's very clear they've got a desired outcome. And then you've got group B, managing the risk, another group of 5, and again, a desired outcome. And one of the things about outcomes like this, when you're trying to draw systems diagrams and get people to negotiate, is those two outcomes look like they are irreconcilable. Getting back on the road and keeping the nation safe is, I heard the head of the UNO, so not UNO, the World Health Organization, talking about we need to be thinking about things in a way other than lives or livelihoods. So he's trying to get us away from that dichotomy of one or the other. And what I'm seeing that this exercise could do is also do the same thing. They look like they're opposites. Do they have to be? So how to move this process online? That's my question. Yeah, I know there are known factors of technology, skill levels with using technology. We're going to lose the personal touch. What are all the other things? And what are all the unknown factors that I don't yet know? So I'm going to stop sharing the screen there and just have a couple of minutes for conversation, discussion, questions. People have got things they want to ask. Please.
Don't run me over.
Don't run me over with the questions. So anything comes to mind for anyone? Did I go too fast? Have I made it clear? Put your hand up if I made it clear. Something, feedback, please.
I'm just trying to get my camera working and then I was going to chime in. I think it's really interesting what you're trying to do. Have you run this as a physical prototype?
Not yet, Nick. At the moment, it's all a thought experiment.
Okay.
Because when I started this process, I was going to do it with an existing game. And that, in the end, to be quite honest, that just got too complicated. To do in this in this kind of presentation. I'm still working on how to do that, but it just got too big to do over like an hour's discussion with people.
Yeah.
But that format that I described is pretty much what I'd probably do. So yeah, question, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing there would be it sounds like quite a soft skill. Well, there's two components it sounds like you're trying to teach. Is one's the soft skill, because there's an element of like conversation and negotiation going on, I'm guessing. Sure. And then the second part is, the actual hard skill of, what a systems diagram looks like, or, how you'd put that together.
Sure.
I think an interesting area technology-wise that you might face, which you don't have in the real world, is you have to get everyone on board with whatever bit of software you're using, or how you're going to get them to construct the actual systems diagram, which you maybe don't have to face in the physical.
Exactly, and you're moving into the next part, which is great. So I'll hang on to that thought, because it'll come back in a minute. Does anybody have any other questions about things so far? No? Okay, so there are 4, 8, 12, 14. I'm going to break you into some breakout rooms, and I'll just show you that. Oh, I'll go back and show you. Hang on, quickly. This is Nick's issue of understanding the technology. What we're going to do now is all the stuff in black. I'm going to post when I put you into the chat room, the breakout rooms. I'm going to put all this in chat, because Nick's issue about technology is one of the key issues, I think, about all of this. I've had to think really long and hard about how to get information in a chat room that stays there for people to explore. And the way I've decided to do it today is that as soon as I break you into chat rooms, I just want you to introduce yourselves, talk about your discussion, so what Nick called the soft skills side of it. And by the time you've been around once, this will come up as a chat message in each chat room, I hope. And then what I'd like you to do is just spend about 10 minutes discussing how would you move, what are the issues. So Nick's done a really neat introduction to that. Again, what are factors that might impact on it? And are there other ways you might do the design? So stop sharing. Put you into chat rooms. 12 goes into 3, so that's fine. I'll see you back in 10 or 12 minutes and say your prayers. My plan for getting the information to you worked.
Hi all.
Hello.
Just the three.
Breakout room 1. This is Maria.
So Maria, Matthew, and Dale.
Dale.
That's correct. Yeah.
The 3 originals in the discussion. There you go. Almost.
Paul now. Paul Elliott.
Okay.
Elyssebeth. Oh no.
Yeah,
Elyssebeth.
no, I just joined, and there's the message in the chat room. So that's I'm going to go away and join the other. Do the same thing.
We all got.
Am I missing a bit of the chat?
No, we're just not speaking.
No, we're just.
No,
well, there's nothing. No, Elyssebeth's stuff isn't in there.
Okay, that's fine. I was running late, and then someone asked me a question, and I duck out, and it's one of those days. That's what happens when you.
Friday. It's Friday.
are working and trying to do some PD at the same time.
Yeah.
So, Dale.
Maria,
Can't see
you
the chat.
probably know a bit about the problem anyway. Had you been discussing it with Elyssebeth?
Yeah, this is how we had a chat yesterday, and she said this is what she was going to do, but this is now the actual carrying out of that. So I'm assuming we're in the chat for the breakout room, but I think it could be the chat for the main room. Here we are now. There's participants 4, so that's us 4. And now, I think if we go into the chat now, we see exactly the same as we did before. So this is one of the first things that happen in online presentations around anything really.
Yep, I'm not a fan of.
Because I've got 4 participants here. Yeah, I think that's probably. So we introduce ourselves. I remembered that. My name's Maria Rodereda, and I feel like a ring in here because I'm a very old friend of Elyssebeth's over a long period of time at UTS. I did a lot of adult educating, but I've been retired for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm sort of starting to, bring my ears back and thinking, systems thinking, I remember that. I had to go and look it up and have a bit of a read about it. Haven't had as much experience of making games or anything, but I am interested to keep the brain going, if you know what I mean. So over to you, whoever wants to.
I'll introduce myself quickly. I'm Dale, so I work with Elyssebeth at SimOst. I help to organise the Sim Cafes, and my background is in serious games and simulations. So for the past 15 years, my business has made those mainly for education.
Well, my name is Matthew Harper. I'm new to Simost. I am an emergency management and crisis management specialist, and I also market a simulation program called IC Online, which is a hospital simulation and mass casualty simulation platform. Which is this discussion to me has been really interesting because I'm currently designing to provide the technical building block, I guess, instruction from here to Darwin, which I've got to do next week. So I have to learn how to talk to 5 people all using different elements of Zoom.
Oh, okay. Oh, that'll be
And get them to share their screens with me so that I can see if they're telling the truth or not.
I'll quickly introduce myself.
Yeah,
I got a
43
warning
seconds.
saying that there's like a minute left.
Yep.
I'm Paul. I'm the education lead at the Centre for Health Innovation. We do medical, nursing, allied health simulations. So kind of graduate education, touching into undergraduate nursing and medical, but a lot more with just staff in the hospital, Alfred Hospital, that way.
Oh, okay.
The Alfred. That's what that says.
You'll be pretty busy.
Yeah. So we're the Sim Centre for the Alfred. No one's heard of us.
Oh, yes, we have. You've been on the news in this last pandemic.
So, yeah, I've kind of come to these.
Fellas, that was my mistake. I hit the wrong button. The technology. I didn't mean to bring you back for another 5 minutes. Did you want to go back and talk, like have more conversation, or was there enough to have a general conversation with?
We just finished the introductions in our group.
Yeah. We're just getting warmed up too.
Sorry. Let me see if I can do that again, because there is time, and I'll try not to push the wrong button.
Breakout room 2.
Oh God! Did I?
Experience in going into chat rooms.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
interested in serious games. So I think that was one of the first ones I sat in on, and I kind of went, "Well, this is fascinating." So, and a different side to simulation. When people say to me simulation, I think of medical stuff, and so joining in with these Sim Australia stuff, I'm like, "Oh my God." We're talking about aeronautical stuff. We're talking about other types of simulation, and I'm like, this is just fascinating. So,
and I think it's the world actually now for a little while, anyway, ongoingly for a little while.
Yeah. So, what were the questions we had to answer? Let me open the chat again.
Well, I don't know that they're there.
They haven't arrived on the chat.
No, that's what I tried to tell her before, but didn't. Everyone, aha. Paul, co-host. There's 3. Merge to meeting window. No, don't know. No. So that's a question that we'll have to ask.
I'd just shut the rugby league down and just tell them to go and get a real job. Give the money to the arts.
I'm I'm not interested. I want to get on with life section. That's me. It could just sort of all happen and I wouldn't even worry about it. Yeah. But I guess, there's not only us, there's not. I can't read it. I'm just getting rid of the chat. So I guess we had to get perspectives, I think was the other one. Dale's ringing Elyssebeth, are you?
Yeah.
We're using another form of technology to get the message through.
That's one of the workarounds.
That's right.
Matthew, you were talking about Zoom meetings. What we found, our biggest thing was that handing control over to someone else. That was something we actually had to say to some of our facilitators early on. There's a button at the bottom that gives control to other people. You were talking about people sharing their screens. You have to do that before. So that was a big hurdle that we had to learn.
It's fascinating. I chair our body corporate, and last night we had to have our virtual AGM. So we're in a block of 24 units. And this, to a degree, I guess it's along those lines that you get 24 different parties into the room who range from age. I hate to think that I think we're the youngest in the whole complex, but I think we're close, up to a couple of folks that are almost in their 90s. And everyone's on Zoom, but I'm actually having to talk through every part. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see the speaker view. Click on that. And as we went through just those little bits of, can everyone mute? Can you stay muted?
Yes.
I can tell who's talking because the little box goes around you. It's the talking stick goes to you virtually. And I've got to say, I took so many notes last night on people's behaviour to incorporate into this training. When I say, okay, Maria, can you share your screen with me? No, not that screen, just the screen I want to see.
Yes.
Because I've really picked up over the last few weeks of, I don't know how many webinars I've done, but I've done heaps where people haven't actually grasped those very basics of just like you're in front of someone and talking to them. But at the same time, it's not.
It's absolutely not. And you've got a very wide demographic that you're talking about there.
And
90 years old to 40 or something.
Yeah, and then to just move across to get through. How do you do voting in? And it's. I spoke to the real estate agents to say, how do we record a vote legally? Because in the meeting you would see a show of hands. Okay, I'm going to have to explain to everyone, you have to put your hand up. Don't just press that button, hand up. I need to see your hand up so we can record it. And I'll do a quick screenshot and I'll put that aside. And a quick screenshot, I'll have it aside.
Oh my goodness.
So we probably have one of the best recorded sessions, but it's interesting. I've actually got so much in, and I'm moving into my trainer's notes for next week of, because I know I'm going to get people who, Paul will know how well, nurses are very well educated folks, whether they want to actually use that education to actually say, oh yeah, I can do this on this system, or whether like a lot of people, hey, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to let you feed it to me. So it's going to be interesting to poke out and prod.
Yes.
Oh, she's gone again.
Yeah,
the business been doing right.
The business I work for, we have a lot of government clients, so we've actually been doing Zoom training with them as they shift all their regular training online. So EPA, CFA, people like that. So I've probably got a bit I could share with you. I could probably send you a few pages if you like. That's some general tips.
That'd be mighty good. And if, Paul, you've got anything special about dealing with nurses on a distance, I'd appreciate that.
Not in particular, like and dealing with nurses on a distance, foursome. We had a big technology thing of, feed them cake.
Yeah.
But when we went to the electronic medical record, there was a lot of meetings to start off with the educators going, okay, so there's some nurses in the organisation that don't even have mobile phones. And how are we going to teach them how to use the computers? And yeah, I was probably a bit over at that point of going, okay, let's go gentle. I went, if you can't type, you don't have a job. And people are like, oh, it's a bit tough. What are we going to do? Hold their hand? I went, my grandparents know how to use a computer. Do they have one? No, they go to the library, but they're teaching their friends stuff. And yet we've got a nurse that's going, oh, no, I don't want to use it.
Yeah. How do you do those medical records? How do you record stuff?
It's on a program called Cerner.
No. I mean, the question to them, I spent a year working for NT Health, and everything there is online, everything, because it's over such vast distances. So they're incredibly savvy until you ask them to use something different.
We did extensive training, using simulation as well.
Yeah, online training or face-to-face?
Online training. So a mixture of online and face-to-face. Big push that everyone that was in the organisation at the time actually had 1 or 2 days of face-to-face. and then we had super users just roaming around.
Yeah.
And we were like, I was called out to actually just wander around wards, and because some processes just took longer, like giving out medications because people were new to the system. And so it was like, yep, rather than having to give 4 patients medications, you can call this person, they will come out, they're a registered nurse, they will do half your medications while you get used to the system. So
How did that go? How did that work?
Really good, yeah. And I think it was just the fact that everyone came out of the woodwork. So all the registered clinicians who had maintained the registration but were working in projects, were working more in education, we all just came out and we're just roaming around, and we all had pages, and you get a page going, yep, come up to this ward. And we were trainers on the EMR as well.
Yeah.
So we would be there and go, okay, yep, while we're here, how about we look at this side of it? How are you going with this? Have you logged off your computers? Because privacy is a big thing when you're wheeling computers around and can just leave them anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Privacy was a big thing. So.
And that's a blended approach. And the blended approach has been proven quite a lot in the last sort of 10 years to be the optimum approach. But I think a lot of organisations actually don't want to do that because of the influx of money that has to be spent on a blended approach.
Yeah. COVID's really affected us as well. We did a lot of face-to-face stuff. So apart from our simulation programs where they're very tactile, so we haven't been able to go virtual with them, our face-to-face sessions of very didactic, we're still stuck in didactic teaching.
Yes.
They've really started pushing towards more of an asynchronous show a video, so then you're ready for a very quick hands-on session with with it's now physical distancing. So they book in times, they book in half an hour, you can clean in between. So, but that's only come about because of COVID. We've really had our hands forced on it.
Yes, which is across the board actually.
Yeah.
And in particular, even in school education, I forget about uni, but school education's had to do a big turnaround as well, from what I've heard.
Well, uni was worse. Like we had minimal contact days. We had 4 contact days, and they all went out the window. So yeah.
No blended approach there.
No blended approach, and continued with the masters, slogged through. But yeah, I don't mind doing stuff online. I did online subjects in the past and actually liked them. This whole asynchronous and doing shift work at the time and looking at packages at 2 a.m.
Yeah, and this sort of stuff does suit certain people and it doesn't suit other people. And I mean, there's sort of a range of those too, actually, from one end to the other, actually.
It's I ran an exercise last week where we did a mixture of people in the main room. A lot of people based from their home-based workplaces, and then a couple of other rooms. So it was right across one of the bigger ACT government departments, and we were looking at what would happen if they had a defined COVID case and they had to shut one of their service centres down, and how they would cope. And I found once we sort of got some of the technology rules under place, the interactions became really interesting because people. But it's gamification to a degree. You know, you've got to imagine this, and here it is, and I'll draw you a bit of a word picture, and we've all got that. I'm going to show you some pictures on my screen, and I'm going to show you where, you know, the person was sitting and how they were moving and where all our considerations. And then it was interesting watching small groups of people, so 2 or 3 in a room, where you could see them on the Zoom chat because they'd all mute, they'd all start talking, but people on their own didn't have that immediate ability to link. So I tried this type of thing once, but as a facilitator, it meant that I had to keep going to all of these rooms because there's nothing that actually allows me to group everyone on my screen and just make sure all the groups are actually interacting. And it's, looking in, it becomes a bit Brady Bunch like we're all probably doing it. We're all looking at whatever corner we're looking at. And so I can go, hi, Paul. Well, hang on. Hi, Paul. And because we're not all in the same position necessarily, all of your directions have to be considered. So you become, it's almost like teaching for the blind in some ways. You stop doing directions. It has to be by your voice. And you then have to give individuals the ability to get the stimuli that the three people in the room are getting. And I never really noticed how much just a small group can actually interact really well. And of course, it then loses if you've got three people in one room, you add another person in, which works. But if they turn their video off, it's gone. The minute somebody in the group turns their video off, trust goes. So you don't have that.
You've been taken away. Yeah.
You don't know if someone's listening to you. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know if you're the only one who's drinking.
Well, we had that in something before we quickly get kicked out. We had a rule in one of our subjects that when you were in the big class, video off, because there was too many streams coming through. But as soon as we went into our groups, everyone had to be unmuted. Everyone had to have their camera on.
So they're the rules around the guidelines that you discuss as a group. A lot of different considerations per se.
Now, Dale, are you going to give our feedback? Just because.
Okay. So, how did all that go? Aside from my bloopers. Good.
Pretty good. We didn't get the broadcast, Elyssebeth. Did that broadcast never materialised?
I'm not unhappy then. That means you didn't see my typos. So
yeah, right. Okay. So that's back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Lots of
broadcasts for the.
And as I think Matthew said, it's an immensely complex process. Just being the host.
That's right. Yes.
So resume recording. What happened in the room? So I ducked in a couple. I saw one room was using the whiteboard. So there's
advanced
skill development going on. Room one. What was discussed in room one?
Did you want to talk? I know you were dobbing me and Matthew, but did you want to talk about that? Because I think no. Paul, no.
You've got it, Dale. You've got it.
Okay. I think we were just speaking about our own personal experiences running things. And the conversation led towards just establishing rules of engagement, I suppose, which was all about in larger groups, perhaps you don't share video, in smaller groups you do because it's essential for trust, and different issues like that.
And see, they're things I would never have thought of, but you're absolutely right. If I was to take this game into an online environment, I'd have to have those as preset rules. It's just not, you can see it wasn't anything I thought of. So that sort of changes, that's sort of out of the technology framework a lot. Okay, anything else?
Anything else of interest?
Mainly the blended, the preference that people have when they don't know the technology. It's good to having a bit of it online, but there is that, has been so far, the need for people to be reinforced physically, with going out to, have buddies and super users wandering around rather than only having online. Which is the same as what we've had for years, really.
Yeah, just on the rules, this wasn't something that I brought up, but just thinking about it, we actually had some, healthcare is my background, we had some nurses call in for some training, and they were actually with patients at the time.
Oh.
And so we were doing some, what we call safe moves, so manual handling tasks. And one of them actually went, oh, hang on a second, I need to do a blood pressure. And the presenter was like, what do you mean? You're supposed to be in training time away from everyone. And he spun his camera around in his middle of a clinic. So, yeah, very clear rules. That's what we learnt from that one.
Yeah,
Clear
absolutely.
rules, training time, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And so that's about competing demands on people's times as well. Yeah, that's a great example. Thanks, Paul. Room 2. Room 2 had the whiteboard up, did they? Or was that room 3?
Yeah, that was us. Sorry, as a sim technologist, I couldn't help getting the whiteboard.
Oh, good.
Yeah, where's the whiteboard got to? It's
Yeah, I
lost
don't
now.
know.
The problem
I
is
didn't see a whiteboard even.
they
Yeah, no.
evaporate once the breakout room is closed. So I did take a
Okay.
screenshot. So let me see if I can share it quickly.
I shouldn't allow. Yeah, you can share. Go ahead, Phil.
Thanks, Elyssebeth. So we started sort of mapping out some things. Now we all missed the very start of the presentation. I came in at the jelly metaphor, so apologies for that. So we sort of started having a play, and it took a while for me to remember how to give control to Peter and Suj to be able to actually play with the whiteboard. So I played with the whiteboard mainly, and then Peter had a play. So I think it's a good way to get people playing. And so we were sort of trying to start to get a bit of the elements of the map together. Would you like to add to that, Peter?
Just like the way that rules of engagement as well as giving control to people.
Yeah, but didn't find all the players.
Yes, providing your people with how to do those things. I've started making some little cheat sheets for how to do some of these things, but I haven't gone into the advanced features like whiteboarding.
It's good. This does work though. It's good.
Yeah, and some of it you've got to set up before you go to the call, and you can't do it after you're in the call. So that's why I had to check whether it was set to allow anybody to share their screen, because so yeah, to me this whole thing is about we're actually learning 2 sets of skills in parallel, sometimes 3. How to communicate, how to use the technology. In this case, how to design a game and how to look at systems diagrams. So there's 4, and they're embedded. So not a bad example of systems thinking. That we're doing all at once in some ways.
Yeah, I think one of your slides we just copied one of your slides, didn't we? Recreated your slide, I think, Elyssebeth, with all the players, the groups.
Yes. Okay.
The risks and things.
Sure. No, if I look at your whiteboard, you are already starting. I mean, that would be exactly what I'd hope to see if I went into a face-to-face group. That I would see, okay, we're stakeholders, we know we're here, we know these are the people, so we're starting to put post-it notes on the board, or in this case, text on the whiteboard, and then we can start moving it around to put it into clusters and things. So you guys well and truly got into the game as well as the technology. That's great. Can you stop?
I'll stop sharing that.
Yeah, stop sharing. So just for that.
Well done.
Thank you so much. That's great, Phil. So the whiteboard there, that's a whole piece of technology that the group Phil was in learnt on the run. The rest of us maybe have learned, or it's sort of yet to learn. And that's exactly, looking at that whiteboard, I think I laughed or something because I heard a response to me joining the room, because that's exactly what I would hope to see in real time. So seeing it in virtual time on the whiteboard was really great, because that means that even though I wasn't formally introducing you to a game, and there's processes for that, you got the idea of it enough to go and start playing. So that starts to tell me that the concept of the game may have some legs. Not complete, definitely not marathon runners, but on its way perhaps. So thanks, guys. That's great. Room 3? Who's speaking? Who is in room 3?
you want to wrap up, Nick?
I can't do. I was going to let you say some stuff. If you want to.
We can share.
Okay.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Yeah. Well, you know, I had already imagined the game, and I suppose Dale knows the ones that we've sort of built that I've used in education, and I was sort of imagining the different scenarios, the positive and the negative, from the different key players all coming together and sort of having different scenarios from each of the individuals from that expert perspective, that that sort of, you work through that progression as a single player in that area, and the others sort of connect in and join, and then you throw these odd curveballs, like one of the players test as positive, so it sort of then.
Oh, you're taking it out to the next level.
Yes, yeah. So, but Nick can sort of explain in more detail.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the starting point for a lot of the conversation was trying to work out how we, like, if we were discussing this with you as an ongoing project, is what exactly do we want to teach, and how do we want to digitize it? Because there's an awful lot of soft skills in terms of the group and the classroom environment, but there's also a lot of functional skills, and like, how do I build this diagram? And so which of these is more important, and they'll lead to very different outcomes depending on what you decide. And in the soft skill side, building technology there is going to be really challenging. Like, maybe you just want to run it as a Zoom call, and obviously trying to understand what your actual ultimate goals are. Are you just wanting to teach 10 people a year this? You wanted to reach 100,000 people a year? You wanted to make it fully automated, or is it a time saver? That would largely determine the direction of where you want to go. But what we did come down to was, if it wanted on an individual level, using a lot of Gillian's kind of experience and what she's been doing, and as she spoke about, is maybe building a scenario where you get given this example, you somehow use a bit of software, whether you've built it or not, to create a diagram, and are then maybe given some curveballs as you go through the experience. So then you have to build another one or adapt it. And that way you're constantly reinforcing, how to build this diagram, how to adjust it, what's good and what's bad about it. And if you go through that stage 3 or 4 times, like, oh, there's this first curveball, and then now the government's come back and they said this, and now you've got to readjust it again. That could be a way of gamifying it. But again, not sure whether is it a group thing you want to do, or is it an individual thing?
They were really good questions and good points. From my point of view, I was imagining it as something we would do this activity once it's finalised, then would maybe have a lecture on, here are the conventions of drawing systems diagrams, and then maybe move into your idea of a new scenario. So you've got all this stuff up on the board, now here's a curveball, somebody's done this or that, So I was sort of imagining, but that's over that's sort of then
longer period of time.
Yeah, into a program. So we've got the activity program and so on. Doing it online, yep, it's possible. It's just as we're all saying, it takes a lot of time. So just some general discussion. How did that work for everyone? We've got a couple of minutes left. We haven't sort of done breakout rooms a lot in the sim cafes. So how did the process work? Did I ask good questions? Or did you ignore them and have your own discussions? And is that something that might happen?
We didn't get them.
No, we didn't get them. Yeah, we didn't get the broadcast.
In the chat room. I went back and had a look. They're in the chat.
They're still in the chat. I lost the chat window when we went back into the breakout rooms the second time, and then when we came back together, I went and clicked on the chat and realised it was still there. So I should have pulled it back up. And
okay, but that is it is feasible that I did not hit return in one of the chat rooms.
Number 1 didn't get it. We didn't get it, did we? Number 1.
No.
I didn't see it.
In that case, what I did was post it, but didn't hit send.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the room when it gets into the chat, you can't see it.
Oh.
The other thing. So all your chat today, up to when I joined, isn't there. I can't see it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something I didn't know. Okay.
But personally, I love the breakout rooms. I love the fact that you meet different people each time.
We use the breakout rooms as well with our teaching, and we don't use Zoom. We use Collaborate Ultra, but I'm sure the techniques are the same. But you can, within our system, share a PowerPoint slides into all the breakout rooms. And so I usually put questions that I want the students to talk about on a PowerPoint slide.
So is that in Teams or something, Gillian, or what?
Yeah, it's part of Microsoft 365. It's
okay.
And well, we use it, as part of our LMS actually, but Teams as well. We can sort of work in that space. But
what was the program that you use?
We use it's called Collaborate Ultra, but it's and I'm not sure if it's only within our learning management system, but I'm not sure. But it's we find that really quite useful. But there's certain little tricks that you need to be able to share and talk, because once you go into rooms you can't talk in rooms. But there's little tricks that we use, and I use a PowerPoint slides, and that will go into all the breakout rooms.
Okay. So Peter Ryan's just noted, I don't know whether you saw in the chat, but he's just noted there seems to be a proliferation of online systems just in time for the pandemic. So I was wondering, maybe the developers had a conspiracy. Let's create a reason.
Maybe they started.
Yeah, I have heard that conspiracy. Bill Gates started the coronavirus to sell the Teams.
Yeah, I have actually heard that too.
Oh no.
There's also Slack and Teams and other things, lots of things.
Oh, gee. Look, it's 2 minutes to 2, so we sort of need to wrap up. And I just wanted to thank everyone. All the ideas and comments are really helpful. I hope I've given you some ideas. I can send the PowerPoint to anyone. I know it's going to be available online, but I'm happy to send it on to people. There are a whole set of slides that I didn't bother including, because it's part of a longer suite about concepts that I use when I'm designing games. So I've already sent it to Gillian. Anybody else wants it? Just I can. If you want it now, put your email in the chat room and I'll collect it.
When you say online, where are they? Are they on the Simulation Australia site, Elyssebeth?
Dale's working on that. They'll be on a YouTube channel, Peter.
Okay, all right.
They're coming up. He's got a raft of them already sort of ready to go, but there'll be a notice to all the members once we're online. And yeah, look, thanks everyone for all your help. Dale, do we have a topic next week?
No, not yet. I don't want to put the person here on the spot, but I've emailed somebody just asking if they're happy to jump in next week. And the week after will be Suj, who is here actually talking about AI in healthcare, which will be really interesting.
Oh, great. Okay, well, just about right on 2 o'clock. I'll say thanks everyone for coming. And I hope I've helped. I hope it's sort of given you some things to think about. You've certainly done that for me. So, and we'll maybe learn more whiteboarding skills next week, Phil.
That was great. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you, Elyssebeth. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you.